Are we headed for a video game crash again? That's the question I'm asking, and maybe I have some answers, maybe I don't. But anyways, welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel if you're a subscriber. Welcome to the channel for the first time if you're new here. And if you like what you hear, like what you see, if you wouldn't mind dropping a like and a subscription, that would really help out. So, video game crashes. The last one we had was 1983, the year I was born. Coincidence? Maybe, probably, hopefully. But we did have that big video game crash, and that crash was mostly due to oversaturation, a lot of shovelware type games, no innovation, and people just kind of got fed up with it. Things were expensive. We were just coming out of a recession, and we had a lot of bad games coming out, a lot of broken games coming out. So that kind of caused the video game crash in the 80s. So what is going to cause the video game crash of the 2020s? Or maybe even the 2030s. We might not even be at the crash yet. I think the biggest thing that is going to hurt the video game industry that could cause a possible crash is the fact that Gen Zers aren't really spending money on games. And God love them for it. I wish we had more of these, or any of these, when I was a teenager. They pick up their free-to-play games, your Fortnites, your Call of Duty Warzones, your games like that they play, and maybe they throw some V-Bucks out there, buy a couple things. But for the most part, they stick to their one game. And I've witnessed this with my son Sean. He used to play Fortnite all the time. He doesn't really do the shooters anymore because he would do like Fortnite and Call of Duty Warzone. But what he kind of gravitates to, and he's also an athlete. He plays football. He plays baseball, varsity level in high school. Very proud of him. But he plays MLB The Show. He plays Madden. He plays EA College Sports. So, and he's lucky because I bought last year's Madden and College Sports kind of for him and I to share. I got him the show for himself. Wait, did he buy the show? No, he didn't buy the show. I bought it for him. I was nice. Actually, it was his birthday gift, so one of his birthday gifts, I should say. But yeah, so he kind of plays those three franchises, and that's kind of all he plays. And because he plays sports all the times, and he does have a job, but he doesn't get to work as much as he would like to make money. He doesn't buy the game every year. Like, he plays it over and over. He does online stuff. He does season mode and things like that. And that's just kind of the habits of that generation. They find a game that they like, especially if it's an online multiplayer game, and they play it. I'm sure a lot of Gen Zers will probably enjoy Marvel Rivals as well. Again, free to play. You can throw some money at it if you want, or you can just play the base game and be happy doing that. Because I know I would... I've played Marvel Rivals a couple times. I've enjoyed the game. I'm not going to spend any money on it. And it's kind of now passed me by. Like, I enjoyed it for the first few weeks that it was out, maybe first month. And I'm just like, I've played that. I'm done with it, kind of thing like that. It's us millennials, Gen Xers, who are the ones who really spend money on video games. And I don't want to say we're aging out of video games, because video games, once thought of in like the 80s and early 90s to be a kid's toy, is an entertainment hobby for many people of all different walks of life, not just like nerds anymore or kids. We play video games instead of reading a book, or God, I really shouldn't have done the book thing first, or watch a movie or watch a TV show. It's like my wife, she likes to read her fantasy novels, and me, I do my audiobooks. I cannot sit down and read anymore. I just don't have the time. Like, it just seems whenever I sit down to read a book, something happens that I have to fix or do something with. So, I listen to audiobooks when I'm driving my car, things like that. That's how I get my entertainment. Or if I'm mowing the lawn, like right now. Well, I just finished up the Thrawn trilogy, the original Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, on my Audible, and then I got Shadow of the Empire, the book that takes place between Empire and Return of the Jedi, and now I'm listening to Bullet Train when I mow the lawn, do chores, things like that. So, but video game is like my form of entertainment. I'd rather play a video game for 2 hours than sometimes watch a movie or watch a TV show, things like that. So, but I don't want to say aging out, but we are at that age where most of us have a family. We have a wife, we have kids, have jobs, have other responsibilities, pets, what have you. My dumbass pets. and we don't have the time to play games like we used to. We have the money to buy games, we just don't have the time to play them. So we'll buy a game and we'll complete it, but instead of completing it in a weekend or a week, it takes us 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month to beat a game that, you know, wouldn't take us that long in the past before because we have other commitments. So not only is Gen Z not buying games, they're playing their free-to-play games, but us millennials, Gen Xers, we are, you know, buying games, but we're buying them few and far between. We're not having the crazy spending habits. Like when I was in my 20s, I'd go to GameStop, EB, Best Buy, Toys R Us, and I'm, especially if there was like a sale, I might buy like 3 or 4 games at a time and be on my way, and then, you know, play through those games in a few weeks. But now it's like I buy a game and then I don't buy another. Oh, thumbs up right there. And I don't buy another game for a few months. Like that's one game that will last me a couple months. And then of course you've got your Game Passes. And what I always promote is Prime Gaming. If you have a Prime membership, you get a bunch of games for free. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I got my Legion Go right here, is because, you know, I can play Game Pass on it, but also my Prime games, I can play all those games for free. Like I don't think. No, I bought Chrono Trigger on Steam for my Legion Go, but that might be the only game I've actually used money for to buy. Everything else has been Prime Gaming, Xbox Game Pass, and things like that. So it's becoming a fact that we're not, like, even us gamer generations, the guys and gals who grew up with video games. Video games were there when we were born and we aged into them, kind of thing like that. We're not buying as many games as we used to, or we're waiting for big Steam sales and things like that, because the economy's getting worse and our dollar doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Like I've gone from, you know, having a surplus at the end of the month with my paychecks and things like that to, you know, sometimes breaking even, sometimes a little ahead, sometimes a little behind, kind of thing like that, just because just the prices of things go up and down constantly, like gas, the groceries, things like that, produce, with, you know, tariffs and other things that are affecting the economy, inflation. So your dollar's not going as far. So, you know, I don't spend that much money on my hobby as I do. Like you guys know about the N64 collection. If you're, you know, a returning viewer, I'm not, like, a lot of the games that I purchased, I used from selling. Again, if you're a returning viewer, you know about me getting out of action figure collecting, and I sold a good chunk of that collection off, and I used a lot of that money to fuel this new hobby. But at the same time, I've gotten very few of the expensive N64 games. A lot of these games have been like $3, $4, $5, $10. They haven't been like the high priced ones, because again, got to use my dollars other places, kind of thing like that. And the collection has been it's been like stagnant and then big and stagnant big. So it's kind of like if I go to a yard sale or I go to a swap meet, something like that, and I find some really good deals, I'll get a few games. But then when I'm out hunting, I'm not going to buy anything unless I can get a deal on it, kind of thing like that. So that's affecting games right there. Just the economy and the fact that our dollar doesn't go as far, and Gen Zers, you know, are not buying games. And then, you know, Y and Z, or Y and X, we're not buying a lot of games anymore. Our gaming purchasing habits have shrank because we don't have the time to play as many games, so we buy games accordingly. Like I will buy a game, and there could be like 3 or 4 games that come out in a month that I really want to play, and unless I know I'm going to have the time to do a review for this channel, I'm not buying all those games. I'll get the one I want the most, and again, if I have the time, I try to review it for the channel, or at least I do my quick 60-second reviews on the short, based on like first impressions and things like that. But then I'll wait on the other games, and a lot of times I'll pick those games up on like deep discount sales, whether if I get them digitally or if I buy a physical copy pretty cheap, like RoboCop, for instance. And I hate myself for this. It went on sale for like $10 on the Xbox shop online, I don't know, let's say 5 months ago. And I bought it, got to play it for about 2 hours, and then I got busy, and so I didn't go back to it. And a couple of the games that I really wanted to play came out, so I played those. And then lo and behold, when I decided to pick the game back up again, it's now on Game Pass. So if I just didn't buy it then for $10, which was a pretty good deal for it, could have waited and played it free basically. So those things happen. But yeah, our buying habits have changed. We don't buy a ton of games anymore. We buy one at a time, and then we'll buy more games. Like Death Stranding, I love the first Death Stranding. Death Stranding 2, I have such a big backlog. If you've watched my Nintendo Switch video, I put my backlog in that video. So go check out that video if you want to see the backlog. There's a lot of games that I've bought over probably like the last 2 years, not just like the last year, that I haven't played yet. So I'm trying to, again, because the economy shit and my dollar's not going as far, I'm trying to play that backlog first before I buy new games. So Death Stranding 2, I might not play it for a long, long time because I want to get through this backlog before I buy that. An exception to that rule is going to be Metal Gear Solid Delta. Huge Metal Gear fan. I will be buying that game next week and I will be playing it. Backlog be damned. But yeah, Death Stranding, as much as I love the first Death Stranding, I knew it was coming out a few weeks before Metal Gear, and I knew I wouldn't have the time, and coming out a few weeks before Metal Gear, but after Donkey Kong, and I would be playing Donkey Kong, and then I didn't know if I'd have the time to play Death Stranding before Metal Gear came out, because I know when Metal Gear comes out, I'm devoting like that entire Friday to playing that game, basically. So I'm not going to. I knew I wasn't going to have the time, so I didn't pick it up. And because I'm trying to get through my backlog, I don't know when I'm going to play Death Stranding. I don't know when I'm going to buy Death Stranding. Death Stranding might be a year old. It might be coming out on the Xbox Series X by the time I get around to playing it. So it's one of those things. And then secondly, and maybe more importantly than buying habits changed, is gaming consoles aren't going down in price. They're going up in price. Everyone's making the joke in who have all the systems are like, hey, if you bought an Xbox at launch or a PlayStation around launch, you've made money because it's gone up like $100 since launch. Both systems have. And even the original Switch has gone up in price now. So, which honestly, with how little I play my PS5 with the rise in the price, I'm like, I might sell my PS5. Kind of thing, just because Sony doesn't have any exclusives coming out that I'm super excited for. I was originally excited for Ghost of Yotei because I loved Ghost of Tsushima. It's one of the few PlayStation games I've platinumed. But I don't know. I just don't have the same excitement for Yotei as I did for Ghost of Tsushima. Just don't know why. Can't explain it. But that would be the only PlayStation exclusive on the horizon that I'm really excited about. But again, because of my backlog, and it's coming out kind of so close to Metal Gear, I know I'm not going to play that for a while, so I'm not going to buy it. I might wait for PC and get it on my Legion Go, so that way I can find time to play it. A lot of you guys know, my wife and I are expecting our third child, so I'm not going to have the time to be up here in the office to play games. I'm going to find time to make videos, but I'm not going to be up here playing games that much with the new baby. But I can probably play on the couch in the living room while mom and baby are sleeping, and that way I can be there if baby wakes up and mama still needs sleep. I can scoop that baby up. Teach it how to play video games. But those are the kind of things, just finding time to play games. But with the rise in prices of systems, that's going to price some people out, because a lot of people wait in generations to get games. They'll get their initial system in that generation, whichever one they prefer, be it the Xbox, be it Nintendo systems. Nintendo doesn't play by the generational rules anymore, so that system could vary, be it a Wii U, a Switch 2, given the last two generations for the other systems. Or, they bought a PS5 first and they're waiting for the Xbox to come down and get it. And that's kind of how I've always done it. When I had my N64, I had all the Nintendos to the N64, basically. And I didn't buy another system because my parents wouldn't buy me two systems. So we were a one-system household when it came to generations. When I became a teenager, I bought my my first N64. I bought that with money I saved up over the summer, mowing lawns and things like that. But when the Dreamcast came out, $99.99, I was 16. I had my license. I had a job. I could go get things. So that was the first system I bought as a teenager. So in that generation, because Sega cheated that generation because the Saturn sold so shit in the U.S., I had two systems at a time. And then, eventually I got my PlayStation. And if you watched the last video, my PlayStation 2, it died. So I went back to 2. But I got an Xbox, so I had 3 again. And from that moment on, it was kind of like I bought my preferred system, and then I would, get the other systems as they came down in price. And so the next generation, because I was kind of locked in on Xbox, like Halo, I really enjoyed, and I was really holding the grudge against Sony because the laser of my PS2 died, and my PlayStation 2 I don't even think was a year old, and they were like, sorry, if you want it fixed, it'll be $150. And I was a teenager, I didn't have $150 to fix my PlayStation, so I went and traded my PlayStation 2 into GameStop with all the games, got a ton of credit, bought an Xbox, bought Halo and a few other Xbox games, probably Tony Hawk 2X or 3X, whatever the Tony Hawk game for the Xbox was. And I became an Xbox person there, and I wasn't going to go back and buy a PS2. And so when the next generation came out with the PS3 and the Xbox 360, I was like, well, I'm loving Halo. I want the next Halo game. And, Gears of War coming out, things like that. So I went with the Xbox 360. And I ended up getting a PS3 after a price cut. And then kind of same thing with the next generation. With the Xbox One, PS4, I stuck with the Xbox as my main console. And then I picked up a PS4 on sale, price cut, a couple years after launch, kind of thing like that. And that's kind of how I've always done it. I bought an Xbox One instead of PlayStation. Again, for games like Gears of War, Halo, those were the games I played. And most of my friends that I played online games with were on the Xbox, so sticking with that one, kind of thing like that. And then I was going to get a PS5 when they went down in price. Well, they've never gone down in price. What spurred me to get the PS5 when I got it was it came with a bundle. It came with Forbidden West, and so it was the retail price, but you got a game, so that's cool. And it had been raised. The price of the PS5 had been raised everywhere else, but the US, I was like, oh, they're probably going to raise the price, so let me get one now, kind of future-proof this thing. And I bought it. So again, like my buying habits have always been, I get that main console first, and then I will buy, the secondary console. And I'm a big Nintendo guy, but the Nintendo consoles have always been cheaper than the PlayStations and the Xbox. So those I never, because I had my adult money, I never considered that as a one console purchase. I always considered PlayStation and Xbox to be the big purchase because they were the $500 systems. The Switch was $300. I think my Wii U was $250. And then, the Wii when it came out was $200. So difference in pricing there. So now the Switch 2 is a big boy. It's playing a big boy game. That was $450. I bought the $500 bundle. So if there were 3 systems coming out this year, the Switch would have been my purchase, and I would just stuck with the last 2 generations there. But with the rising prices, so now people who are waiting to get a system because they can't afford a $500 system, they might not get a system. It might take, Grand Theft Auto 6 coming out to push them to get an Xbox, to push them to get a PlayStation 5, or they might just be like, it's been forever since the last GTA came out. I don't really care, kind of thing like that. So it's another thing, Gen Zers not playing it, Y and X not having the time to play, so we're not buying as many games. And the prices keep going up of the systems and the games, and our dollar ain't going there. Like, inflation's going up, things are getting more expensive. We're not getting raises. Like, if you look at the charts of the rise of inflation and the increase in pay for people, inflation's going this way. Our increase in pay is kind of staying, maybe ticking up a little bit, but cost of living raises aren't going up to match inflation. So again, our dollar's not going as far. So we have to cut out luxuries, and it's really easy to cut out a $500 system, an $80 game. Because you got to think that $500 system, that is going to, hopefully, if you're like a family of 3, that $500 can be your grocery bill for a month or even less than a month. Hopefully. But again, prices keep going up. $80 game, that can be, dinner for a week right there for your family. You buy your groceries for that week, $80. I mean, that's an easy cutout right there. So when we get into these kind of economic times, really easy to cut out expensive luxuries. Like, I don't go to the movies anymore because to take myself, my wife, Sean, and Bowie, that's like, with the way tickets are, that's minimum if we go to like a new release, even a matinee show, and that's minimum $70 right there, because it's generally like $15. Matinee's $15 now. And so it's like we got to go on like a Wednesday afternoon matinee to the local cinema, because then it's like $5. And even when you get the discounted tickets, food's not discounted. So, you tack on, let's say all four of us go, so that's $20 a ticket. That's not bad. But then when we all get food, that's going to tack on like $40 more. So that's $60 right there in one night for one entertainment for everybody. And again, if we go to a new release and we're paying $70, there's another $60. That's $130. I mean, shit's expensive. And also, y'all know, WWE fan. I remember Sean and I, when he was a little kid, 7, 8, 9 years old, we'd go sit ringside when they'd come to DC, and I'd pay about $100, $150 a ticket. Little, like, that's kind of expensive for some people. Like, oh, you're complaining about prices and you spend that much. But you're sitting ringside. It's a fun event, It's, like, not something we did all the time, obviously. It'd be, like, at best once a year, but I think we only did it, like, 3 times, so once every couple year kind of thing like that. But now they're coming, close to Richmond, and I was looking to get everyone tickets. They're $160 for nosebleeds, like, not ringside, but because, when you got to buy 2 tickets, it's one thing. When you got to buy 4 tickets plus food, you've got to, not sit as close as you want to. You sit further back, but then you're paying $160 tickets before fees. And then, so you're paying, let's see, that's $320. So that's almost $700 right there. Probably $700, probably $750 after fees. And then you're going to go buy food, and food at the arena is going to be at least $50. So you're talking about $800 for tickets. That's ridiculous. Like, I remember, because Sean and I didn't always sit ringside a couple times, we were up in the rafters, like $25 a ticket for rafter seats. Which, when you're taking a family out, $25 to go see a wrestling show, that's not bad at all. Kind of thing like that. And my buddies and I were kind of talking about that today because we were talking about the ESPN app. And, it's just ridiculous how much things cost these days. And it's not even like, I'm remembering back to when I was a kid, because I know people like to post ads from the 90s and things like that. I'm thinking about when Sean, who was only 17, when he was a younger kid, like when he was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. So not that long ago for prices to be skyrocketing like that. And it's happening with video games too, like $80 a game, man. That's why I bought the $500 system. I was going to wait on Mario Kart. I was like, I'll pay $60 for it, whatever. And then it was like $80. Oh man. And $80, $70 a game. That's expensive when you got to think like $60 a game, like an $80 game, $60 game. It cuts into your budget, cuts into how many games you can buy, things like that. So I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm not going to make a prediction. Oh, it's going to happen within this gaming generation. It's going to happen for the next one. Because I was watching Inside Games with Bruce and Lawrence, and they're convinced the next PlayStation is going to be $700. And a lot of people are thinking that. And, yours truly, I think it's going to be at least $600, if not like $650 kind of thing. And it's probably going to be all digital, so you can't even buy physical games for it. So that's going to be a lot of money for people to spend. And when you talk about backwards compatibility, yeah, if you have a bunch of digital games that are backwards compatible, but then you got to keep your PS5, because if you've got all your games physically, you can't play them on the new system. You got to keep PS5, so then you can't trade that in to try to lower that price, which is what a lot of people do. So I do think a video game crash is coming. I don't know if it's going to be a total collapse like it was in the early 80s, or if it's going to be we're going to see studios cut back on budgets. And, instead of spending millions of dollars a game, maybe only a couple $100,000 on games, having smaller dev teams. So again, that's going to create kind of a crash if you're a video game developer, because you might get laid off. And we've already seen a ton of layoffs, even though we're getting record number profits from games. So it's just kind of one of those things to kind of keep an eye on and, think about. Like you said, up until this generation, games and game consoles always kind of went down as the generation went on. But now you're seeing even like the older games that came out when the systems first came out, they're still holding retail prices. They're not being discounted either. So it's definitely not something you can do on a budget anymore. You got to wait for these sales or buy used games, share games with friends, kind of thing like that. We're all kind of hurting here. And I'm even hurting even worse because freaking my family van, the stupid transmission died on that thing. So now we're down a car and we got to go find a new car where we didn't have a car payment. And now we're going to have a car payment because the stupid car died. And before you say, well, you can get the transmission fixed, already looked into it. The transmission would cost more than what the car's worth because it's an older car. We've had it for a while. Like I said, paid off. And so I don't want to spend that much money on the transmission, and then if something were to happen to the car and it would need totaled, I'd lose money there. So it's just one of those kind of pros and cons things you got to freaking weigh. It's stupid being an adult. But anyways, that's kind of like my little TED talk about a possible video game crash of some kind coming. And I think it's coming sooner rather than later. I think, what is it, 2025? I think before 2030, we're going to have some sort of crash. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think we're going to start seeing these record profits start to go on the decline. And maybe that will work out in our benefit because we'll start getting discounts because they got to move product that's not selling. So, I mean, it's kind of a wait and see. It does stink because this is a hobby I really enjoy, and I don't want to see people who make the games I like to play lose their jobs. And I don't want to see less games because the more games we have out there, the more variety we can pick from, and we can find something we all enjoy. So, with that said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me hear your thoughts on it. Like, what do you think? Do you think a crash is coming? And if so, do you agree with my reasoning, or do you have reasonings of your own? I definitely want to hear them. I do like this discussion. I'll probably, if I get enough comments, I might do a response video to some of the comments, like stuff I didn't think of. But definitely want to hear what you have to say about this. So don't forget to comment on this. And as always, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.